Date to your potential, inspiring, educating, and empowering single members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Our hosts are Peggy Matheson, betrayal trauma recovery expert, and Sharon Collier, certified life and relationship coach.
So Sharon and I are sitting here saying, we're brilliant, we're pumping ourselves up for this podcast. Not that we're down, but anyway, episode 63, y'all.
Hello.
Y'all, I did it again. I've done this before where I go back down to Texas or wherever. I don't even know where this accent came from, but it just came out. So let me get back to myself here. The importance of knowing your partner's love language, and you don't have to do it in their accent either. I'm just saying.
No.
So, Sharon, lead us out on this. Why is this so important?
Well, I've had the thought lately because a lot of people tell me they're in a relationship and it's just not working. The relationship isn't working, or there's so much to this relationship there, but there's just a couple things missing. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, is it the love languages? Because nobody wants to beg to feel love, right?
No.
Nobody wants to coach somebody
No.
through loving them.
Right.
And so I think it's important to know what the love languages are. And I think it's important we know what our partner's love languages are. But if we don't have a little background in it, or we're not familiar, then we're not going to be able to speak that.
Right. Well, we need to know what our love languages are, too.
Yes, we need to identify that. And I think we talked about this. Boy, we talked about a whole bunch of things. Our brainstorming sessions we should record. We talked about different times how some of them might come up more. You know, like right after your divorce, you might need more words of affirmation, right?
Right. You might need it to fill a hole that's been left from the past
but
relationship.
This is not necessarily your core
Got
love language. This might be coming up and you're really needing that right now. And to tell the truth, all of us have all of them. It just depends on, you know,
What level.
what levels they are. Like, you know, what your primary is. I was telling Peggy, acts of service are embarrassing. When people come over and try to help me, it's so embarrassing and I don't know how to receive that. Yet I like to do acts of service. It's embarrassing. And so I'm like, that one would be like at the bottom of the barrel for me to feel love through acts of service.
Right.
You know, and she's like, you need to receive service. And
That's right. I'm like, there's a receiving thing here we need to work on.
Yes, you need to receive and to give. And so
Yes.
obviously, you know, I'm going to say it's a 0. It's a -4 on the list. You know, where other ones, like I'm a quality time person. My birthday's coming up. And everybody's like, what can I get you for your birthday? And I'm like, just take me to lunch.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just take me to lunch and spend some time with me because I'm much more a quality time person. So should we go through them?
Yeah, let's go through them.
Should we talk about them?
I'm sure most people have heard of them, but let's just review them.
Okay. In no particular order. I don't know. By the way, these all come from Dr. Gary Chapman. We're going to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, back from his book, The 5 Love Languages from the 90s, I believe it was.
Yes.
And there's so much that's written and talked about this.
I'm so glad it's like so widespread and so big.
Yeah.
You know, like it could have been read a couple times and ignored, but it's not. And they're important. I can look back on my marriage and see where I was lacking in speaking my husband's love language. And Peggy brought up a thought how you need to use your gifts and your talents and your personality to be able to speak somebody else's love language. And we are going to talk about that.
We'll
That's
talk about
super,
that.
super important. Okay, not number one. The first one we're talking about is gifts. Giving and receiving gifts, okay?
Let's go through them. So there's first, and then let's explain them. So there's
Gifts,
gift giving.
acts of service, physical touch, quality time, and words of affirmation.
Okay.
Yeah. So gifts. Gifts are an important part of probably any relationship because there's holidays and things like that. But to the gift love language, they don't need a big elaborate gift. They want a thoughtful gift. They want a gift that expresses that you know them, that you know what they like, that you know what they dislike. Like if someone were to bring me black licorice or something, I'd be like, take it back. You know?
And if somebody brought me back black licorice, I would say, thank you. How did you know?
Right? Now I know I can give my black licorice.
Now you know one of the big
to
differences
Peggy.
between Sharon and I.
But they want something thoughtful. and well thought out. And Peggy had a good point about how she would use like creativity and maybe giving a gift.
Yeah, because gift giving is not my strength. It's something I've had to work on over the years. And so we've been talking about how do you, if I were dating someone or was married and my partner, his love language was gifts, I would need to expand myself and figure out a way to be a gift, become more giving of gifts.
Yes.
And so I struggle. I mean, initially my first thought is panic. Oh, I have to get a gift.
Yes. Yes, it's Christmas. It's a birthday or
it's like,
something. I
oh,
have to give a
Christmas,
gift. Yes.
And so I would do this actually with Christmas too. I would try and make it creative. I would try and do creative, gift wrap and all of that stuff to try, because that tapped into a strength of mine. And so part of what we can do is if we come upon a love language that our partner has or someone we're dating and it's not our natural, we're not naturally inclined that way, find out what your strengths are that you can kind of piggyback on your strengths to get that, to make that work. And I'm going to share an example with you. One of my best friends recently got sealed in the temple, got married. Oh, such a happy day. And I was like, what am I going to give her? And part of my personality is I procrastinate things that are hard for me to do, and I procrastinated.
Yes, but sometimes that adrenaline at the last minute
but
helps.
that adrenaline actually creates a creative flow. So there's a purpose in it, which makes me feel a little better about that. But another friend gave me an idea of getting a picnic basket and putting special things in it, So I'm like, oh, great. But it was too late to order one. Even Amazon today, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have just totally put myself in a bind here. But I was serving a friend who was selling her mother's things, had an estate sale, and I was helping her. And there's tons of stuff. And I just put it out there. I'm like, I bet I'm going to find a picnic basket. Sure enough. And she just gave it to me. I found a picnic basket. I mean, it might have been from the 50s. It was wicker.
Fun.
It was cute. It had a little flap that could go up and you could put around, not a flap, but it was wicker as well, wired wicker that could go up around the two handles so that when you picked up the two handles, the lid stayed on.
Oh,
anyway, it was
cute.
really cute. It had a blue and white gingham print in it, and it was old. I didn't have time to change the material inside or anything, so I thought, okay, something borrowed, something blue. So I thought of that poem, right?
Oh yeah.
Something borrowed, something blue, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue,
Yeah.
something with 6 pence or pennies or something like that. So I thought, okay, I'm going to make something up with a poem and this basket. And I just kept thinking, what am I going to do? But it took me a little while, and I gathered like a beautiful scented candle, and I got some personal items, and then I got $1 million, a chocolate bar that said $1 million, and just some other fun things. And I wrapped them all in these tea towels that I bought. And so they were all wrapped in the tea towels. And then I printed out, and I had a friend help me print out and this saying about where the saying came from. And I made little jokes about it. I gave her a book on marriage by Wendy Nelson before she was married, on intimacy and marriage. And so I made connections with that poem, with the things in the basket that I gave her, and a beautiful card. And they loved it.
Oh,
they just loved it. And I felt so good because I really wanted to express my love for them. And I just felt like it was such an important time. And so anyway, but that's how I used my creativity and my strengths to be able to give a gift that was meaningful for them, and that I felt like it was going to cover my butt.
Right. Not even that she's an overly big gift person, but But yeah, if you're not a gift person, gifts are hard.
Yeah,
You know?
it's hard for me.
But you kind of have to dig into like how well you know a person.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and it's like, are they going to be happy with, this? Because it's easy to get a scented candle or so, or something
Right,
generic for
right.
a friend for their birthday. But it's like, do you know that pumpkin spice is their favorite?
Right.
To go that extra step to please the gift giver. And that's
Right.
where the gifts.
You mean
that's
the
where
gift receiver.
Or this gift receiver. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. The gift receiver. Yes.
Yeah, so that's an example of being able to access your own strengths, to be able to expand your capacity.
Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd all have the same love languages, right? We'd partner up with someone who has the same love language.
Well, and it may be that in our perfect being someday, in God's, in the next life, we all have them. I
Yeah,
don't
we all have
know.
the same
We all
ones that,
have, we're all expansive in all those areas.
and yes, but somebody's, most everybody has primary ones.
Right.
And I'm going to say, like I said, most people have all of them except me, who doesn't have acts of service at all. It's like, don't show up
I
at my
don't
door.
believe you.
and
I do
offer-
not believe you.
offer to help me. People go, can I come and help you with that? I'm like, nah.
I don't believe you.
Okay, moving on to acts of service. My favorite. Okay. Acts of service. Peggy actually looked up a really good quote on acts of service, and I really liked it.
There's a Dr. Russer Majors. She expands on the acts of service idea, noting that serving another is a type of relational leadership. And I love this. And part of what they say with acts of service is like doing for your partner what they would like for you to do for them.
Yes.
And that just seems like natural way of being in a partnership, that's an important part of it, is doing for someone something that they would like for you to do for them.
Well, and not necessarily something that they need for you to do for them.
Right.
So
but
I-
it could be that. But
it-
also,
no, it
but did
definitely-
you would like.
Yeah, definitely could. But, a small act of service going above and beyond. I've got a brand new baby at home, and my husband's going to go do the dishes. I didn't ask him to. I could put down the baby. I could make him hold the baby, and I could go do the dishes.
Right.
A lot of the things I read about the love languages involved chores,
Oh, yeah.
involved household chores, and I thought that was really interesting. But, there's a lot of things you can do outside of household chores, but those are really easy ones.
Yeah.
Those are really just easy ones.
Well, I love that what this Dr. Rosser Major said. I love that she said true leaders serve others before serving themselves. And I thought, I know this is leadership in a relationship is such an important thing. Having leadership and talking about it. And for me, I love it to have a man that is a leader, that will lead out and will provide and protect, like we say, they are naturally hardwired to do.
Yeah.
And leadership is a part of that. Not that, and that we have co-leadership for sure.
Right.
But, I love for him to take the role of providing and protecting in whatever way that might show up.
Right.
But that's service.
Right.
That's
oh no,
an
and,
act-
I mean,
that's
and
a
service
service.
is really important in any kind of relationship.
Well, yeah, we talk about the Savior and service, and that's a part of living the gospel of Jesus Christ, is being a servant
Yeah.
of others. So
Yeah, but like I said, a lot of them were chores, and if you want to do acts of service, that's a really good place to start. We were talking about that earlier. Jeff he was a computer guy, my husband, and they would move companies, or they would move from one location to the next in the company, and it's like, okay, how could I serve him? How could I make his life easier? I could go mow the lawn. Because most couples establish
who's going to do
roles.
what?
Yeah, I could go sweep out the garage. So he wasn't really worried about, getting the garage. He's not sweeping out the garage at 12
Midnight.
a.m. or 2 a.m. or something like that. So yeah. So acts of service, I don't have a lot more to say about that because it's not.
Well,
it's
acts
not my
of service is,
It-
I
it's
feel
very
like it's one of mine because I did a lot of that in my marriage.
Yeah.
I did a lot of serving too. And some of that was to compensate for things that weren't
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
So part of that you've got to look at, is it a healthy or unhealthy thing? And I mean, it wasn't bad in any way, shape, or form.
No.
But I think for me, like making dinner, making food, baking can
Yeah.
be an act of service for me to give to another person.
Oh,
Although
yeah.
although I do resist it somewhat, but but it's a way that I have shown love is to serve.
Yeah.
Is to serve in my relationships.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem serving. It's just when people show up. And honestly,
It's just when you have to receive.
When I have to receive, and I'm going to say this is post husband's death, because I did enjoy and I did appreciate his acts of service. You know, if I did have a baby, he would, you know, take care of everything around the house for a couple days or take time off. And so I did enjoy that. And in the relationship sense, I did enjoy that. I do have to clarify. Right now, it's just hard. Okay, moving to physical touch. So if we have to tell you how to touch somebody, if we have to clarify all the touching.
This isn't about sex either.
No. Sex is a way of touching, though.
Absolutely. Intimacy, for
yes,
sure.
Intimacy, you know. But touching, just general touching, hugs and hand-holding and just touch. There's people who are touchers. And I just want to clarify this. When I talk about green lights, when I talk about green lights and people who break the touch barrier, you have to watch people, because a toucher, someone whose love language is touch, is going to probably touch every person in that room in one way or another. A hand on the shoulder, a hand on the arm, a little elbow bump, a fist bump. So when we're talking about flirting, if somebody's touching you, observe, because some people are just touchers. And I want to say,
so it may not be a green light.
it may not be a green light. That's why you need to observe, because people whose love language is physical touch will touch you.
Or they'll hug everybody, right?
Yes, they're you know, it's like, sorry, I'm a hugger. I love it when they apologize. I'm like, why are you apologizing for being a hugger? But yes. So, and touch is one of our human needs. Like infants need to be touched. So a toucher will probably go above and beyond regular touching. My husband was a good
I
toucher.
think also when you get into a closer dating relationship, it will become more obvious. Because I feel like sometimes there's someone who, I mean, like physical touch is one of my love languages, and
One of the top.
I don't always, but I also balance it with the connection I feel with the person.
Yes.
You know, so I'm not one of those people that's going to go around and touch everyone in the room, and I'm an introvert too, which also plays into it. But physical touch is one of my love languages. So when I get into a close relationship or a partnership, and also I have to say I wasn't raised with a lot of physical touch.
Yeah.
That wasn't part of, like, my mother's love language, I don't think, was physical touch. Maybe my father's, but not my mother's, and she was the primary one that took care of us when we were little.
Right.
So I had to learn how to expand that in myself, but it is a big part of who I am. But like I said, I need to get to know someone. Sometimes depends on how I feel in the connection. So in the dating relationship, it might not show up immediately, but it will show up pretty quick.
Well, definitely. My son is, I won't specify.
Which son?
Yes, is not a toucher. I mean, like, not a toucher. And I thought, oh, well, when he's dating and stuff, you know, he's going to have to touch, and he's going to want to touch because our physical attraction and our pheromonal response makes us want to touch.
Yeah.
But I think after that kind of initial period wears off, because he's not a toucher, and his fiance will complain that he's not a toucher, and they've kind of had to figure that out. And Peggy asked me, she goes, well, what's his strength? What is his strength that helped him touch? Because when they're in public now, he holds her hand, because I think they thought about it enough. But he's a thoughtful boy. One of his strengths is I get really good gifts from him. I'll get more expensive gifts from him. He's a sweet boy, and he uses his thoughtfulness to remember that she wants her hand held. And I think that's super important. And I think that means more to her, that he remembers that every time, that, okay, I want to hold hands. I want to touch you. I want to connect with you that way. And he'll hold her hand in public now. And so we all kind of make fun of him because he's stiff and funny about it. But he does that for her.
Well, that's great. And that's a great example of using one of his strengths.
Yes.
To be able to give her what she needs.
Yeah.
Which is super important.
Yeah, and I just think, I just wonder if a toucher can be with a non-toucher because, like, really how that's going to play out. But, you know, he makes an effort, and that's really sweet. And I don't know
And
what
that
they're-
is something that you're going to have to decide on an individual
Yes.
basis. Just have communication about it, talk about it, make sure that you let the other, you know, the person you're dating know, or your partner know, and communicate about it. That's going to be
Yes.
the most important thing. And then if you can work it out, great. If you can't, you've got to
Right.
make a decision and say, am I willing to sacrifice
And this kind of goes back to like begging. It's like, who wants to beg to be touched? If you have to beg for your love language, you know, hopefully, you know, you have that discussion early on in the relationship. What's your love language? And you can talk about how you need that expressed to you because, you know, we need to talk about our needs, right? We need to
Yes.
communicate our needs in relationships. Hopefully we can talk about that. But usually when you're asking somebody to change the way they are, it usually happens really well for 2 weeks and then it kind of fizzles off. And then we are kind of begging for it again. So we need to be aware if this is how we need to be loved and they just can't do it.
we have a choice to make.
Yes, we do have a choice to make because we shouldn't be begging for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, quality time. Quality time. I want to say a lot of ladies are probably quality time. I think a lot of ladies, don't you think? That's
We
probably
wanna
up there
talk,
for
We
you.
want to connect
Uh-huh.
emotionally. We want to have that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So quality time. If you're not a quality time person, you need to get into like actively listening. Okay, we want to be heard.
Yes.
Quality time people want to be heard. We want to speak, and if you don't know listening skills, I think Peggy, you talked about some good listening skills last time, but we've talked about listening skills, listening to hear and understand, not listening necessarily
To respond. Yeah.
Yes.
And reflecting back.
Yes.
Reflecting back to what you've heard. Because last time we talked about challenging conversations and how important that is.
Right.
Such a great skill to be able to listen and not just think about how you're going to respond. And
Yes.
also to observe your emotional temperature, if you will, in the conversation. That's
Yeah.
a challenging conversation.
Right.
But yeah, quality time.
This is focusing on them when you're together.
Right.
This is not both of you sitting on the couch playing on your phones. This is not necessarily even watching a movie. You know, a quality time person, you might be like, well, we sat and watched a movie together for 2 hours. And it's like, that's time, but that's not necessarily quality time.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe it's when you come home and, like, if you're married or if you're in a partnership where you see each other all the time, maybe it's just if your partner needs quality time, maybe it's sitting on the couch holding hands, talking,
Yeah, and just
and
connecting about your day.
connecting about your day.
It just popped into my head, my in-laws, when he came home from work, when the kids were old enough to be left, they would both jump into his truck and they'd go get a Pepsi at the Holiday.
Yeah,
Around the
see,
corner.
now that's
You know,
quality time.
It is. It's like they went and got their Pepsi. They spend a half an hour and they'd come home and she'd put dinner on the table and they'd all eat. And it was like they just had their little half an hour before they got into the, you know, the chaos of all the
love
kids
that.
and everything.
I
And it
love
was
that.
really,
That's
really,
a really kind of
Yeah.
cool routine.
it was really sweet. And so, you know, it's like, get creative with your quality time. That's just how they did it. But, you know, a quality time person does want to talk and be listened to and connect, you know, in time. So let's move on to words of affirmation. This one is a hard one for me.
This is a hard one for me, too.
Yeah. So,
But I have to say, it's gotten better for me. I've worked on it for years. Part of what I worked on was receiving compliments from other
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And so, but I'm going to steal your thunder. It has to be sincere.
It does. It does. I was saying that earlier. I'm like, I cannot give an insincere compliment. I have girlfriends who can just compliment anything and build anybody up, and they're so awesome. And I would just choke on that.
Me too.
If it was an insincere compliment, if
Do it.
it was forced, I would just sit there and choke, and it would come out really stupid. It just really would, because you know, it's not my strong point. I told one of my guy friends I don't think I could be married to a words of affirmation guy, and he goes, "You're really good at it." I'm like, "Yeah, when I can be sincere."
Well, and that would be that would be a great conversation to have
Right.
if your partner's words of affirmation, love language, and you are not, is to say, how can I do this? But I got to
Yes.
do it in a way that's sincere.
And not forced.
Yeah. And maybe you can make it funny. I mean, humor is such a great way to bridge gaps
Yes,
in a
it really is.
relationship.
It really
so
is.
making it funny, and maybe for me, I can see, being extra expressive in a funny way, knowing that that's an inside joke with both of us,
Right.
with somebody I was dating, if that was one of their love languages. So, and having kind of this agreement, like, okay, I'm going to give it to you, but it's coming this way.
Right. Yes. Yes, exactly. So I like how I read an article, and I like how they put words of affirmation the best. Expressing affection through spoken word or praise. Expressing affection through spoken word or
I
praise.
love that.
Being grateful, thanking people is words of affirmation. You don't necessarily think of it that way. Of course, compliments, praising.
You know what? I've practiced that, and so
Yes.
I am better at that than I used to be.
Pointing out what they did well. I guess that's a form of praise. It's also the written word. Little love notes in your kids' lunches.
Yeah.
Have you ever did you ever do that? Some of my
Yeah,
kids
I did.
some of my kids were like, well, that was lame, and the other ones were like, thanks, Mom. It just depending. My daughter, I didn't realize, but my daughter's a words of affirmation person.
You know what? Now that you say this, I was watching my grandsons every Monday, and my daughter would make lunches for them every Monday over the summer, and she did that. She put little notes. I thought it was the cutest thing, and I was like, oh, maybe that's probably one of her love languages. I need to
It's-
find
yes.
out. As Sharon and I have been talking, I'm like, I need to find out what my kids' love languages are.
Yes, because
I
you
don't
can
even
get,
know.
you can really connect better with especially where my children are adults now. I would like to connect with them better. So like she sent me a picture of bar stools, my daughter, and she found them on the side of the road, and I thought, gross. But she pulled them apart, she painted them, and she reupholstered them and sent me a picture and said, I found these on the side of the road. Look what I did. So knowing that she's a words of affirmation person, I asked questions about them. How on earth did you do that? Was that hard? Oh my gosh, you're amazing. Of course I should expect nothing less from you. And really affirmed her. And I could tell by her responses that she was very pleased with my response. Where normally I would have been like, cool, sweetie.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
since I know, it's like she was kind of showing off. It's like, okay, I need words of affirmation here, so I gave them to her.
And I love that
That's-
because of your knowledge, you're
Yes.
able to give her what
to
she
speak,
needs.
to speak love to her.
Yeah,
I
I
can
love
tell
that.
her I love.
Speaking love,
Yes,
I
I can
love
tell her I
that.
love her all day.
to
But
speak love. To
yeah,
speak love
but
to
it's
another.
like that, and so this is in any relationship situation. But when you have a romantic partner, isn't that a beautiful thing? To be
Yeah,
able
to
to speak
speak love.
to speak their love language to them and make them feel validated and loved.
And I would add here that as you're dating different people, explore this capacity in yourself.
Yes.
And test it out. Test it out with the people that you date and see how it lands, see how it feels, and become the kind of person that's flexible in giving different different types of love languages to someone else, so that when you meet your forever partner, you will have more of a capacity. You will expand your capacity to actually give them love, to
Yes.
speak love to them.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of times you can tell what theirs are by the way they behave towards you. Like you said, your daughter in the notes.
Yeah.
My husband used to leave me little notes on my car. And one time he came in to visit me. I was working at Chick-fil-A at the mall. And it was before it was in the Eatery, if everybody knows the University Mall and Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
It was way back in 1987 or 88. Anyways, I was taking my break and I was sitting with him, and my boss came out and he was mad. He just thought I just saw my boyfriend and was eating. And I looked at him and I said, no, I'm on my break. I wouldn't do that. And, he was upset. And he's like, well, you better go get back to work. He didn't like that I was in my uniform out in the lobby. I don't remember what he didn't like. And Jeff just left this little tiny note on my car that said, sorry, doll. Because he got me in trouble. And I kept that forever. I might still have it, because I have a little Valentine's Day chocolate box full of little letters and stuff.
See,
that
we
he'd written
all
me.
love those we need
yeah.
validation. We need this. All of us need words of
Yeah.
affirmation.
Yeah, but
So-
it's like okay, I should have been more aware of that to say, okay, he needs little love notes and things, and I was good at like getting him treats and things that he liked for his birthdays and stuff. But I was okay with the gifts because there were specific things he liked and didn't like, but the words of affirmation,
Yeah. You know what? You and I were talking earlier, and I wanted to bring this up, that both of us struggled with words of affirmation in our marriages. And I think part of it was because there was control and there was a lack of connection in ways that we needed
Yes.
to feel good enough, to feel comfortable enough to feel like we can give honest compliments when we really weren't. Our love languages weren't being, our bucket
Yes.
wasn't being filled.
Right.
And so that's something to be aware of. When you're not feeling it, maybe there's a piece missing in the relationship
Right.
too. I mean, that's something to
Right,
look
yeah,
at.
because we were talking about it because sometimes Jeff would beg for that, and so I'd try to compliment him, and he'd go, that's just forced.
Well, it does feel forced,
and
right?
it does feel forced when you're not connecting or when you don't feel
Right.
like you're being loved.
Right. I felt like it was going one way, and that's
yeah.
just hard. So
Yeah.
just being aware is important.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole can of worms.
That's a whole other thing, but I just wanted to put
that we could open.
put a little note out there about
But
that.
yes, so just understanding. And this is why relationships take time. This is why dating situations take time. Can this person speak your love language? If you don't have the same love languages, I'm going to say it's going to be a good thing. Your top 3 love languages, hopefully there's some part of your partner that has one of those in their top
Right.
3 so that it's not so complicated. Because it does get complicated, and know what it is. There's a test you can take on Gary Chapman's website. You can just Google 5 love languages and take the test, because like I said, in different situations and different times of your life, some are going to come up, but that's not necessarily your core love language. So learn your core love language, be able to express what you need, because that's important too.
Communication.
Communicate your
And
needs.
That'll help your partner so much by being clear about
Yes.
that. And then they can choose to give that to you if they want.
Yeah, and if you're constantly begging, that just might be a sign that you're not with the right person.
Right. Thanks, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Did we cover all 5? We did.
We did.
Great. All right. Hope you guys can go out there and spread some love, speak love to those around you. And here I am back at that accent again. I'm going to have to try a British one next time. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and that it inspired you on your dating journey. Please share this with anyone you think might benefit from what you've heard today, and click the button to follow us. You can reach either Sharon or I at datetoyourpotential.com. We work with people who are single or married. We want you to know you are not alone. We support you. We are in this with you.